Oh, yeah.
Bless and love, my lords. Welcome to another PunksTalk by Red Lion. I'm joined here today by our co-host Dudley, of course,
Welcome to the show, guys.
and excited to have here with us today Mr. Alejandro Cartagena. Did I pronounce that right, sir? Hello.
Hello, that was perfect. Thank you.
How are you doing? We have been chatting a long time online, but it's the first time we speak.
Yeah. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited. Working a lot and developing new projects and making this space more habitable for everybody.
For sure. Let's start, man, with how we always break the ice around here on PunksTalk. And could you share with us your punk story?
Sure. So I came into Web3 in 2020 via foundation, and I'll tell a bit about that later. And I ended up leaving, then coming back in 2021. And when I was selling one of my artworks collection called Carpoolers, a punk approached me, Tony, a non-fungible Tony Herrera, a fellow punk. And we started a beautiful relationship of like, what can we do in Web3 for more Latin American artists like myself? And, we became really close friends. Then we developed Obscura DAO together. And right from the start, he always talked about me getting a punk, and sure enough, I think it was like 6 months into having met him, he facilitated the opportunity for me to acquire the punk that you see here.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful, heartwarming story.
Yeah. He's been my mentor in Web3, and my angel to put it lightly. He has been hovering there to help me and guide me in all the projects that I've done in Web3, and including the getting this beautiful punk.
Wow. Big shout out to Tony, man. He has been a patron of arts and a patron of the Gazette since we started. This man is an angel for great art, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, he's one of the good ones, and he's been here many cycles, and his calmness has been a guiding light in turbulent times, and is always there to pick up the phone when we need to talk.
I remember when we were starting with the Gazette on Rarible, and basically I didn't know what I was doing. One of the first buyers was this clown punk, and I was like, Tony Herrera, who is this man? Why does he like what we do? And I was like, totally fascinated about strangers' kindness to actually buy your NFT and look at your idea and say, hey, I know that's not perfect, but I would like to buy it. It's good enough,
Yeah, for sure. That's him. He's always on the lookout to support people, and he's definitely a big patron of the space.
For sure, I will try to get him on PunksTalk. I also listened to his Punkcast episode. Absolute gentleman. What was your entry price for your punk?
He offered it at 69. Was the price that I did.
That's very nice. That held up well for a purple hair
Yeah,
now, and still above floor.
yeah, yeah.
Talking with a lot of punks here, I hear a lot of different price points and a lot of different remorses people have, and so it's therapeutic also for me. And but I don't go into that shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Yeah, 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 yeah. The now is the only thing that
Mentality.
matters, man. It's the only thing that we can actually control.
What you mean?
Yeah, yeah. Like the now. What if this happened? If we did that? If
Oh, the now is
yeah,
what we can
the now
control.
is what we
Okay,
can control. Yes.
okay. Okay, sorry, I'm a bit
No,
slow,
no,
man.
dude. It's all good. It's all good. It's
um,
maybe
all
it's
right.
too early for me here, and maybe too late for you wherever you are.
Where are you joining us from?
From Mexico.
Oh, wow, that's nice. Whereabouts in Mexico
In
are
the
you, if you
north,
don't mind
it's
sharing?
a industrial
Mm.
city called Monterrey. We're like an hour and a half south of the Texas border. It's
Oh, wow.
the place where the biggest giga factory of Tesla is going to be built this year here in Monterrey.
Yeah, and they said they will do it in 9 months
I know,
instead
it's
of like,
crazy. Everybody here is
yeah,
like
it's insane.
loving and hating the idea because we already have the largest Kia plant in Latin America here in Monterrey. So it's good, but at the same time, who knows? We have a little Korean town in the north of the city. Anyways, we'll see what happens.
That's so beautiful,
Yeah.
man. Mexico has always been one destination I've always wanted to go, and also very vibrant art, produces amazing artists.
Yes.
Do you mind sharing like your journey? How did you start with art and photography? I guess is your
Sure.
main art form.
Yeah, yeah. So I actually studied leisure management. So I was in the leisure management industry. I worked in Marriott hotels. I worked in McDonald's. I worked at a lot of like independent restaurants. And I had also studied music in university. So I had that art inclination, but didn't really see like where to go with that. And then in 2004, I took a workshop about analyzing photographs as works of art. And that made me see that photography was art, and it's been art for over 180 years, and I had no fucking clue that it had all this history and all these ideas. And I quit everything. I quit my job, and I became a starving artist at 27, and I went down the rabbit hole of discovering what I could do as a photographer. At first, I was just doing like projects on my own, and then I had the opportunity to work for free for a museum as a volunteer. And I did that for a year, and they saw me that I came back and that I was doing a good job for them. And then they offered me a job. And for 5 years, I worked at a museum and an archive, learning about photography, scanning work, writing about work, doing grant proposals, doing exhibitions, curating shows, doing contests for the community, doing conferences around photography. So I literally did like a master's degree for 5 years at the museum of how to be an artist photographer. And then after that, I did a master's degree in visual studies, which is a theoretical kind of understanding of art, not producing art, but understanding why art is art, why art is part of culture, why we can't not do art. It's just an intrinsic value that we have as human beings. So
I'm also very interested in those
yeah,
questions.
yeah. And
My favorite art comes from artworks that are asking
yeah,
these questions.
exactly. And that, simultaneously as I was doing working at the museum, studying. I was doing my own art and doing projects. And then I started publishing books, and I've published 27 books of my work since then. That was like my big art practice.
Were those photo books?
Yes, all photo books, self-published, published with publishers in Italy, Germany, the US. So that was for me like a really interesting way to distribute art that was democratic to some extent, because you can publish a limited edition of 500 books or 1,000 books. And, you know, those books can get to 500, 100 fans. So then I started publishing books for other people. I started designing for other people. Then my art career took off, and I started being collected by museums like SF MoMA, the Getty, the JP Morgan Chase collection, the National Gallery of the US. And that was like right at the peak of my career. The pandemic happened, and I had a solo.
But you took it to another level with the pandemic.
Oh yes,
right?
Yes. So the pandemic happened, and I mean, I was talking to another artist the other day, and we were silently acknowledging each other's excitement when the pandemic happened, because for a long time we both were able to stay home and experiment with stuff. And because I was always traveling, lecturing, presenting my work, exhibitions, book presentations, I wasn't able to like sit down and think and see what I have done and how to like better distribute my work. And that's where I came into NFTs and this idea of the digital collectible. And I fell in love because it made complete sense for photography. It's, you know, my work has gone viral several times in the internet, and I've always like wanted to see if that virality, instead of my work being devalued because suddenly people just share it for free because it's a digital image. Suddenly the blockchain idea was, yes, the more that is shared, it can accrue value, but you need a repository of that value, and that is the NFT, the inscription on a blockchain that says that all this virality, all this sharing of this image can signal that the original NFT, the original digital image, can become more valuable because it's become adapted into culture. People want to share it. It's all over the internet, blogs, Instagram, Facebook, share. But there's always one place where all that value comes back to, and that's the NFT. And that for me, theoretically, was like, oh, I want to do NFTs. Like my work is being shared out there for free. Sure, let that happen. But at some point, there is going to be somehow that all that viral value will come back to serve the NFT as a cultural object that has value, monetary, cultural, aesthetic, artistic. So that's my, like in simple terms, how I decided to do NFTs.
Oh, that's really nice, man. I mean, like a lot of people were challenged with the pandemic, like 90% of the world.
Yeah.
So you found a creative solution to your problem. And I talk with a lot of people that are smart and creative, and I get the same almost remark when they found NFTs. They were just like, "Whoa, that makes sense," you know. And that also happened to me, and I was like obsessed by it for like weeks to learn and catch up and understand what's going on. I remember, was it Carpoolers your first collection, or was it the first collection that exploded?
No, that was my first collection. I actually, the first time that I tried to sell that work was on a beta version of Foundation in September of 2020. We were 10 artists on Foundation at that time. And it didn't work. For me, I didn't sell anything.
I remember it was so hard to find it afterwards. I was looking for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's gone. There's no trace of that. The auction system was, it was based on, you decided the starting price and when a final price, and it was date based. So let's say September 15th was the release, and it would start at 0.01 ETH, and the final price would be 3 ETH on December 1st. So that was their mechanism, their first mechanism that I tried. And it didn't, I maybe it was, I don't even know if it lasted more than a month, that for that beta version that they had.
That was very OG.
Yeah. And then
took a good collection with it.
And then it disappeared. The website stopped working. I guess they did another domain or something. And I was like, nah, whatever. It wasn't for me. It was a pandemic. I mean, I was drunk almost every single day. It was not a nice moment, to be honest. But in February, I started listening or hearing a lot about NFTs. And Foundation came up. I was on TikTok, I think I heard about it. I was like, holy shit, these are the guys that I did this thing a few months ago. So I reached out again. By then, they had exploded. They had thousands of creators. I don't know if you remember that before you had to have an invite to actually be part of the platform. So it was like, hey, can I get an invite? And they're like, no, you have to find a creator that gives you one.
Yeah, the invites in the beginning were mental, but people were selling. It was a good idea, though, on hindsight.
I think so. I think it really made them stand apart from the masses. But yeah.
And the FOMO for the invites was real.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Remember Max was banned for selling it, I think.
Sorry, Dudley, you're breaking?
Sorry, Max Osiris went farther, and he was selling artwork on Foundation as like an invitation, so he got banned.
Ouch.
Oh, man, I love Max. Fucking brilliant, though, right? As a concept, it's brilliant, you know.
Max Sorry to break it.
Very, very smart. I mean, great concept creator, man. Yeah. He always breaks the stuff he. But that was a wild season, man. But it was good for them, the way they did it, and
for sure
they evolved the market. I mean, Foundation kind of found its place as the cheaper super rare, in a sense, that actually has a lot of people in. It's not like a dead market.
Yeah.
So I think they are doing a wonderful job.
For sure. I mean, they've been trying many things. I mean, the Carpoolers launched their. I minted, I think, the first ones in March or April, but it didn't sell. I hustled like a fucking bitch, man, for 3 months. Didn't get a single sale. And then suddenly one of the founders of Fingerprints DAO saw the work, and he bought 5 pieces. And a week later, I sold out 50 pieces. And that created a big wave that suddenly Foundation needed collections, because that was minted on their storefront contract. And for me, it created a big issue because it wasn't searchable as a collection on OpenSea or the other secondary markets. So I remember, oh my God, the collectors like insisting, why don't you have a collection? I'm like, I don't even know what that means. Like,
Yeah, man, that was the disease of 2020.
Yeah.
I remember I was telling so many artists, make your collection. And then they make their collection. They spend like zero point 0.4 each for the contract. And then they were like, I spent so much money for this shit. It didn't make anything. Red, you fucking idiot. I'm like, yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah,
man. No
exactly.
But a lot of artists didn't have contracts back then. And a lot of artists minted in general contracts. The level of knowledge overall was a bit lower than it is today.
Oh yeah,
of course.
I mean, it was like, it was technically impairing. Like, Manifold wasn't open to the public at that time. A friend of mine, Cooper Ray, he managed to convince Richard to mint his work on a Manifold contract, and I think that was like the first photo NFT contract done on Manifold, and that was, I think, July of 2021. But it wasn't open to the public, and my friend was kind of savvy with doing it that way. But it took, I mean, I was one of the first 3 artists to mint a smart contract onto Foundation. That was September, I think, of 2021. And I minted 3 contracts of the Suburban Mexicana project. And that was amazing. I mean, the sensation of control flipped. And for photographers, I remember I tweeted so much about this. It was like, smart contracts is ¿cómo se dice en eso en inglés? It's analogous to owning your negatives as a photographer. Whoever owns the negative of your work is the one that can actually print out images of the negative. So if you own your smart contract, you're the one who can print out NFTs into the blockchain from that smart contract. So it's almost like whoever owns the smart contract is the owner of the NFTs that could come out of that smart contract. And so for photographers, that's very important because we work in projects. We do one-of-ones, but inside of individual contracts, individual projects. We don't mash everything together. Like if we publish a photo book, it's on one subject, one idea. So again, that's like a smart contract specifically for that project. You don't want to mint out everything out of the same smart contract because it doesn't make sense. You want everything to have its independence. Yes, your wallet is your provenance and you can, from that wallet, create all the smart contracts, but the smart contracts unites bodies of work together, conceptually for you as an artist and for your collectors.
My brother is a photographer and I'm trying to get him into NFTs. And when I try to communicate what a beautiful and good concept collection looks like in photography to him, I'm showing the Carpoolers collection and the Bikes of Burden collection to him because I don't know, I am a noob, of course. I'm not too deep into photography, and these are 2 great projects that I really, really love, and they demonstrate the idea of a concept, coming in all together as a collection.
Yes.
To bring the artistic merit, because if you just see one photograph of like a bunch of dudes laying down on a on a trackpad, it is what it is. But when you see it from how you did it, it is art. And it comes back to what we were chatting earlier. What is art and why is that? Down to that question again, right?
Exactly.
So, talk to us a little bit about your process. People think that photography is just like clicking a button, but it's not actually that. So, how does it all take place?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I have no constraints on how I create my art, but in retrospect, I can see several paths of how I've produced projects. There are times where I just go out and photograph, and that type of process is about like a hunter and gatherer. I go out and I gather as much as I can, and then when I'm at home, then that's when you actually create the art, because you start seeing, you have a tendency to capture, I mean, I'm going to put it like very simply, trees, right? You went out for a whole year, and out of the 10,000 images, 8,000 has a tree in it. And then suddenly you become an artist when you notice what you've done. And I've done projects like that. I've also done projects where I already know what I want to do, and then I just go out to prove, let's say, my hypothesis. What does it look like? Like one of the projects I did that way was was about the downtown Monterrey, where there was a lot of crime, and there was a lot of building of suburbs at that time. So there was a combination of this housing boom towards the outside of the city, but inside the city, the inner city was dying, and there was a lot of crime. And I wanted to make a project about that, but not about the crime, but what happens to the actual space when this thing happens. And that came from reading urban theory and human theory, where these cycles of cities happen all the time. The inner city dies, the outside of the city booms, the outside of the city decays, the inner city becomes booming again. I mean, New York was that at some point. So I wanted to see, can I actually see that mechanic play out in Monterrey? So I already knew what I wanted to see. I wanted to see abandoned houses or empty lots. And I went out with a large format camera, and I did 30 pictures, and I proved my point. Yes, it's starting to happen, where you have these houses that are being torn down. You have all these abandoned houses, and it was a theory. Go out and prove if that theory is visible in the world. I also do other type of projects where it's I have like a fairly notion of what I want to photograph. I photograph it, and then I don't do anything with the work for 5 years. And then after 5 years, I go back and see, okay, what did I do? This was the initial idea, but what really did I capture in those images? So right now I have maybe like 25 projects that I've done in the past 15 years that I haven't published, I haven't shown, and they're just waiting there for me to go back to see what I actually did. And that distance is really important for a photographer, especially because at the heat of the moment, you think you're talking about something, but in reality, the camera doesn't give a shit what you think. It captures what's in front of you. And sometimes you need that time to actually see in reality what the camera captured. So it's, yes, photography is easy because it's clicking a button, but to do good work, it takes time and really understanding how to be analytical about the work that you do. Because today's cameras are, perfect. The phone, you can do a project with your phone. Those cameras are really, really good. They expose really well. They use color correction really well. But does that mean that you can actually say something? I would argue that it's not easy to say something with a photograph.
Yeah. How did you do it for Carpoolers, for example? Did you wait on bridges until and like monitoring closely the traffic until you saw the right kind of pickup truck?
Yeah. Carpoolers is like the ending point of a 7-year project. I actually photographed first the housing developments where these workers come from and where they live. And I also had photographed where they...
Is this how you got the idea from?
This was one of the sparks of the idea. But it even goes further back, like maybe...
Did you see them one day loading up to go? Or?
Yes.
Oh, right.
Yes.
All right.
But,
and how the top-down perspective
exactly.
came to
And it goes even further back, maybe 30 years... No, not even 30, like 35 years ago, when I would visit my family here in Mexico, because I was born in Dominican Republic. My grandfather is a construction worker, or was. He's passed away. And he used to do this with his workers. He would get them to come to his house. He would load them in the back of his Ford 150, and that's how he took them to work. So it was a scene that I knew, like I had seen very up close. But what made the click in the end was I was commissioned by a research institute to document for 11 research papers that dealt with how people use cars in Mexico. And I had to photograph how people go to work in their cars, how people clean their cars, how people park their cars, how cars look in traffic. And when I was doing that part, I started to go on buildings, bridges, and photograph traffic. And in one of those bridges, traffic was going fairly slow. And I looked down bird's eye view, and I saw the workers in the back of the truck. And I'm like, holy shit, it's this thing that I've seen so many times. And I took a photograph of it, and I thought, wow, this is interesting. But stylistically, it was so different to what I was doing before, because this was my first using a digital camera. Before that, I was only doing film camera, large format, medium.
Are these images cropped though?
These images,
are these images?
Some are cropped. When the traffic was going too fast, I would do a larger frame so that I would capture the truck, because if it was too tight, I would say that I have a 10%.
Those guys go fast.
I had a 10% success rate capturing. It's not easy to capture them in the center part, the center of the frame.
How many hours per day on that bridge to capture?
Only 2 hours, because they.
Oh wow, that's really nice.
Yeah, they enter work at either 8 or 9 a.m. So you have to be there from 7 to.
Imagine if they knew that there's a photographer taking photos of them going to work.
Exactly, and
that would freak them out, right?
And at that time, that was. I wouldn't argue that the project is about this, but it was right in the middle of the drug war, and Mexico was turbulent. It was the moment when people were being kidnapped. There were shootings on the street all the time. People are being hanged from bridges. People are being beheaded and their heads thrown in the middle of the city. It was barbaric time.
Narcos,
yes.
like we watch on Narcos.
Reality is more gruesome, because it's life or death. Narcos series, that's entertainment. This stuff was really, really bad stuff. And I was photographing right in the middle of that, and I that's when I started working with an assistant to go to do photographs, because I needed somebody to be on the lookout for anything suspicious, and we could just run the fuck out of there just in case. But we got visited by the police several times, because it was what are you doing photographing on a highway? But yeah, it was an interesting moment to be a photographer in Mexico. I
didn't anything, I would guess, right?
Excuse me?
To be anything, when there was so much trouble.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier you have 25 projects that you haven't shown anybody. Are these the projects that and the collections that you are planning to mint in the future?
I don't think, I'm very conscious of what works in what medium. Those projects in particular, I've been editing them as like in dumb.
Sorry, let me rephrase. Would you, if nobody has seen them, is it easier to publish, or if someone has seen them, would you think not to publish?
No, it doesn't really matter. I don't think there's an intrinsic value to publish things that haven't been seen. It's more of like, I don't show them because they're not ready, right? In my mind, I'm not ready to show them. But yeah, for NFTs, I mean, if I were to do something, it would be like a second part of Carpoolers, another, like a second a drop of 50 Carpoolers, and that would be it for that project. And I also, there's like sub projects that came out of the Carpooler series, like, because I went there for a whole year. I captured how the city moves, and like there's a whole project of like red trucks. Like I captured, I don't know, like 800 red trucks, or garbage trucks, or like a VW bugs. So if there is something, I feel that I would do something that is light in the heaviness of its meaning. And those other projects that I've done that I haven't like shown are more political, more like conceptual projects. So I don't see them working as NFTs at this moment. But I would see them, yes, as a book or as an exhibition. But yeah, this year I'm part of Photo London, which is an art fair in London. I'll be showing there a project about suburban buses and traveling from the city to the suburbs in bus, which is kind of like a second part of Carpoolers, but in public transportation. So that is something that I'll be showing this year. I work with museums more this time. I've been just this year been collected by 3 major museums, 2 in the US, 1 in Australia. And that's...
So you're focusing more on that side.
Yeah, for my work, I see like...
For 2023.
For 2023 is the work that I'm gonna do as like my work is in the traditional art world more than NFT world. Museum exhibitions, gallery exhibition, art fairs, and publishing maybe a book this year.
This is what I wanted to ask you about the books you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
We are, you don't know it, but we have been chatting like, oh, we should do a photo book with Alejandro behind the scenes, you know. So, how do you go about that? Do you have like material for publishing, and do you plan on like releasing any photo books of new projects?
Yeah. So like I have a publishing house. It's called Los Sumergidos. I run it with a friend of mine from New York. And we do book fairs. Like this year, we're part of a book fair in New York called at ICP, which is the International Center of Photography. So we'll have a booth there. I had a booth in January, and also we were selling our books. We basically...
Hello, am I down or?
Hey.
All right, let's hope now everything's okay.
I'm sorry, I don't know what happened. I got rugged.
Yeah.
So,
are you going to be in NFT NYC this year?
I don't know if I'm going to be at NFT NYC yet. I have so much work that needs my attention from the studio here, but my friend is my colleague that I run the publishing house with. We'll have a booth at a ICP. There's a book fair there this year. and hopefully again in New York in November. We were there last year for the New York.
Where is that book fair? Maybe me and Dudley need to go visit them.
Yeah, sure. It's the International Center of Photography, ICP is the name of it.
It's only for photography books.
Yeah, that one is a photo book. But in November, there's a bigger book fair, and we participated last year. It's called Printed Matter, the New York Art Book Fair. It's like the epicenter of art books in the world. Definitely recommend.
Oh wow!
People. Yeah.
We have to go there. That's exactly what we do. Book as art.
Yeah, that is the place to be. I mean, it's like it's 3 floors.
When is that? When is that?
That's in November.
How is it called? November. Yeah. Is it in New York?
Yeah, in New York.
Dudley.
Yeah, it's definitely.
I think that is a great one to be at because it's not NFT oriented, right?
Zero NFT oriented. It's about books.
So we will be, the different guys, the weirdos.
Beat it, man.
For sure.
But we will have our physicals. They will understand how the digital, because on the digital we are putting video and it's like an interactive experience, and we can do stuff that you cannot do on the physical. So
for sure,
they're both very, very well connected, and it's a beautiful experience,
Yeah.
Especially some books don't require reading. I think they will like it, omnidirectional books and the punk book we are doing. They will appreciate the concept, I think,
Nice. Yeah. I mean,
just for displaying them, that would be awesome. I would love to join that one. Thank you for telling me, man.
Dude.
I didn't know this was actually a thing,
Yeah, it's that. I mean, it's a thing. It's they're all over the place. There's another one in Europe that's really big, but it's you have in Arles in France, there's one for photo books only. That's in the summer in June. And then you also have Off Print in Paris during November also. And you have, what is the name of, there's a book fair on a boat on the Seine, which is one of the most famous photo book fairs. So yeah, there's many opportunities to show to show books.
That's incredible. Thanks for educating us. I think I should have done some more research into that.
For sure.
I should have known it. Hey guys, if you have any questions and you would like to join the conversation, now's the time. Just raise your hand and we'll pass on the mic. I don't know, Dudley, if you have any questions.
Well, I got and I forgot.
You had one and you.
You just surprised me now. My pen.
No worries, man. Alejandro, what about NFTs and photography going into the future? How do you see that craft evolving? Because we saw some interest when they first appeared, but now again they are sliding, I wouldn't say to obscurity, but it's more of a niche, right?
It's always been a niche, my friend, I would say.
Well, that's true, because I used to say that there are no hardcore photography collectors. It's usually art collectors that also collect photography.
Yeah, I mean, if photography has had its I don't even know how to put it, but it's struggles in the art world right from the beginning. I mean, it was seen as non-artistic because it was just a machine taking an image, creating an image. And that was very problematic for the medium. It was slightly resolved in the 1880s or 1860s when photographers would then take the negative and then paint on the negative or scratch the negative, make it handmade, right? So it's it's like almost an etching, but it's based on a photograph. And that was called the pictorialist era in photography. And it lasted maybe 30, 40 years. And then
Do you think this happened because people were too stubborn to accept
yes,
photography?
yes. I mean, it
Yeah, it was a new tech, right?
yeah, it was the AI of the 19th century.
100%. It was cheating, right?
Yes,
Because
exactly.
the artist took so much time to
Yes,
make this image, and the photographer
yes,
only clicked a button, and I
exactly,
don't know,
exactly.
put some chemicals on fire back then.
They used to use mercury. It was there were a lot of explosions when at the begin the first 5 years of photography. But anyways, yes. So it struggled. I mean, it's been struggling since then. First, for them to accept it as like the traditional art world to accept it as art, and then there was the issue of the limited edition prints that I would say up to the 1970s or 80s, photographers didn't do limited editions. They were just printing out of their negatives because there wasn't a market for photography. But it was the collectors of a generation of collectors that started seeing work from 100 years ago and said, wait a minute, this thing has been alive for 100 years. There's value in something surviving so much time and holding artistical ideas. And they went and they collected everything from the 19th century because it had like historical value. Who knows if it will have, like art value, but historically they were valuable objects. And then suddenly there was this canon of photography as art, and museums started to collect. Everybody started collecting in the 1980s and 90s.
It's always the pump that makes people interested,
Yes,
right?
exactly. and then photographers started to do massive prints to like say, okay, this is it's a simple photograph of a portrait. I mean, there's this artist called Thomas Roof. He did like in the ID pictures, but he printed them 2 meters by 1.5 meters. Like an ID picture of your like your ID. You've never seen it at that scale. Suddenly it became art because it was like decontextualized. It had no use as a photograph. And if it doesn't have a use as a photograph, then it can be art because art is useless. It's art, right? And that's what photography has been struggling with, because a photograph can capture something that looks real and everybody's fixated. Well, if it looks real, then its function is to tell the truth and to be a moment of time to show reality. But photographers have been wanting to shake that shit off themselves for years. They don't do photographs to only say that it's real. They do photographs because they like aesthetics, composition, conceptual ideas. But the fucking photograph has that layer of being too real. And that's, I think, one thing that now with AI images that look like photographs, suddenly it's like collectors are like, oh, photography can also be art because it can look like a photograph, but now we know that it's all bullshit, that it's invented. Even if it's like a prompt and it looks like a photograph, now we know that it doesn't have a use. It's just art. It's just aesthetics. So I think it's an interesting moment, and photography will definitely benefit from what's happening in AI for sure.
I love the parallels that you brought and how similar they are with the whole NFT phenomenon that we saw recently, and the whole interest around NFTs and art and photography and all of that. It seems like history is repeating itself.
Inevitably.
But you put it through a lens and you showed it to me through a scope. I never thought about it. And photography actually is a misunderstood art.
Yes.
And I never thought about it this way.
Oh, it's so misunderstood. It's it's sometimes a dirty word in the traditional art world to say that you're an artist and you do photographs. To put it, I mean,
like being a dentist and saying you're a doctor.
yes, exactly, exactly. And we've been battling with that for years, but we're stubborn we're a stubborn breed of artists, photographers, and we don't give a shit, and we keep pushing, and we go forward because this is art. We are thinking of things. We want to say something with the images that we create. The thing is that we learn to do images with a machine, but that doesn't take away that we are not creatives and we're not thinking things over and we're not criticizing ourselves. We go through the same process of what a painter goes through, and the criticizing of the self-doubt, the imposter syndrome, all that happens to photographers too when we're trying to do our art. So it's just one thing that I like important to mention with a lot of the artists that I've worked now, like taking the other side. I've become more of a promoter or like an art dealer, being on the other side, trying to explain to artists why it's important for them to do NFTs. One aha moment that I see with a lot of the artists that I work with through fellowship is that the scarcity suddenly makes sense for photography. There's always been an issue with collectors and photo prints, because they can't there's no way to guarantee that that limited edition is going to be respected. So with the blockchain, with an NFT, and with an understanding that these are only one of ones, a lot of the artists that we work with are like, yes, this is they get it, because it's like, okay, I don't need to be worrying about selling editions. No, it's like, this is a one of one, and that's it. You get it or you don't get it. That's it. Let's make this valuable. Let's not make the same mistake we did 50 years ago when we started doing it
with editions
of 25 or 50 or open editions. So a lot of the artists,
things are moving to uniqueness, and one out of one, as we see with art blocks and other platforms. You need to have every NFT to be unique, you know, as the PFPs are. And having the collection artistically connected, but every photograph one out of one, that makes a lot of sense.
I mean, it was just one of the artists that instantly got it is Joel Meyerowitz. He's 80 something. He's one of the masters of the photographic medium of street photographer. He was the only photographer that was let into the September 11 zone to capture what had happened there. He's one of those legends. And when we started talking about NFTs, he's like, I get it 100%. I've been waiting for this for years. This uniqueness is going to transform photography into the future. And
same with Misan Harriman we had on the show, and he said he was a gamer. The moment he saw this, he was like, fuck
yeah. Oh my God, he does amazing stuff for sure. So there's these, I mean, I've been a big advocate to say that photography is one of the OG mediums that belong in NFTs. You know, it's we've been waiting for this for years. And it just clicks in so many levels that, I think, yes, it's still a niche. It'll take a little bit more time, but it's worth it because it will become a beautiful space for photography.
Amazing, man. I don't know, before we close, if you have any final comments or anything to say, or where people can chat with you and find you.
Sure. I mean, this is me, Alejando on Twitter. I also would recommend the project that I'm leading right now called Fellowship, if you guys want to follow that. We post a lot about photography in the NFT space, outside of the NFT space. It's an educational space. We also work with, I would say, the best photographers in the world to help them come to Web3 and do it the correct way, and bridge, blue chip photographers to collectors that are interested in these masters of the medium. We also are doing experiments. Last year, we did a project with Dmitry Cherniak, a little bit of a mix of generative art with photography and cameraless photography. This year, we're experimenting with artificial intelligence images. And we have a project that is launching next week, March 16th. If you guys have a chance to see that, it's the first part of 11 artists doing what we could maybe talk as post-photographic images. Post-photographic in the sense that they are photographic, but they are completely made by artificial intelligence. But they hint at what photography does well, which is simulate reality, create narratives, create stories. So that's an interesting and exciting moment for me in the NFT space. And yeah, reach out if you ever have a question about photo NFTs. I'm a geek and I like talking about those things.
Absolutely. Amazing, man. Thank you so much for coming to the show. And I would like to invite you again in 2023 at some point.
Sure.
We will send you an invitation, check with you what you're up to at the time.
For sure.
Talk art books. Maybe we catch up. If you're not in NYC, we catch up in this artistic book conference that you mentioned.
Sounds good. Yeah, for sure.
But it would be great to meet you also in real life.
For sure. Sounds good, man.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for listening, and don't forget to check our new website and the Gazette that is up. We did a wonderful work. Dudley and Amal put out a new cover. We have some more interviews coming out again tomorrow with DJ JD and Unicode, our art drop artist. So that is tomorrow. The tweet is coming out, or it came out, I'm not sure. I think I will also put a stream either tomorrow or on Saturday. I'm trying to get that organized with Darvid. It will be a comical one. It will not be trading, so something like wallet review.
Well,
something like that.
Isn't your trading comical too?
Yeah, it is. That's true.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it. Thanks everyone for listening. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.